And I have to tell you, when I walked in today and I had the opportunity to speak to so many of you, and also shocked that a lot of you do not know where you got your name, okay? A lot of us had a conversation. And so why do I go there? Because it touches on both of the, not the both of, what they both spoke about, which was, who are you? And so the reason why I ask about names is the fact that your parents spent a long time coming up with that. They agonized. They fought over it. In-laws got involved. Sometimes it wasn't pretty. And then what would happen is mom's in labor and dad comes up with his own name. So I think that's the beginning of who am I. And it reminds me of a story when I first started working with senior level clients, and I was speaking with the CEO, and it just kind of came out of my mouth. I had not really grown in my maturation and wisdom at that time. But as I look back at when I first asked the question, I went, oh, maybe that wasn't such a good question to ask him. But as I look back, it changed my life in the way that I coach. And what I asked him is, who are you? And he was silent for a long time. And he finally looked at me and he said, I have no idea. I have been so many people to so many people that somewhere along the line, I lost myself. I don't know. And that's where we began working together, so that he could find who he was, who he had lost, and what his passion was, and what really moved him, and what spoke to him. And so when we began to do that, things began to shift. And it shifted my practice. And this is what I know, is that's where we begin. When and as I stand here with your brilliance and your engineering degrees and your, I don't know if we have any scientists in here, but we've got all kinds of people here who have amazing credentials and who make this world work. And what happens is we get so focused on our work, and that's wonderful because that's what you're being paid for. But you're also being paid for this. You're also being paid for relationships and teamwork and how you connect with each other. So the STEM is the foundation that gives, that's what you stand on, and that's where you're proud. But at the end of that STEM, I don't know if any of you have ever called your girlfriend and said, oh my God. Anybody ever said that? He sent me, you're not going to believe it, he sent me a dozen long stems. What would you think if you opened up a box and you had a dozen long stems? Well, let me tell you, the rose is the relationship. And so what I would say is that as you are working, and both of them touched on it, it's also going to be the soft skills, and the soft skills are the hardest skills. And what I see every day with my clients is a lot of it is about the relationship. A lot of it is about how I get you to follow me, and I'll tell you a story. I also work with emerging leaders now. And a few years ago, I worked with a young woman. She's with one of the top 5 oil and gas companies in the world. And her boss's boss said, you know, she's really smart. She's over all these countries. She is one of our stars that's emerging. But she leads with intimidation. And so when I met with her, I had spoken with her boss, not her boss's boss, but her boss. And she said, her boss said, we don't want to lose her. She's great, but we can't keep our teams cohesive if we don't have a leader that knows how to get people to want to work with them. And so when I met with her that first time, I asked her, I said, so when you walk away from our coaching and being together, what would you like to walk away with? And her shoulders went back. and the blonde hair went off to the side, and the squeaky face. She was 26, and she looked at me, and I will never forget this till the day I die. She said, "What I want is executive elegance." And I went, "Wow, I want that too. I want executive elegance." So think about how many times that you have somebody walk in and you can feel their presence. You can feel their elegance. And one of the things Dana talked about was be steady. Are they steady? Yeah. And they may speak, they may not speak. But they have really mastered the ability to connect and the ability for people to follow them. And so I wrote down a few things because I believe things have to be sticky in order to remember them. Because in the heat of the moment, if you don't have a mantra or something to bring you back, then you can get caught up in that emotional piece and not, well, I don't always sing like that, but really align yourself. So that brings me to the first one, and I call it head, heart, and hara, okay? And so the head, when we only come in leadership from the head, we can end up with an Enron. We can end up with a situation to where we're only connecting with people with facts. And you and I both know that what moves us is emotion. Has anybody ever seen the commercial at 4 o'clock in the morning on the ASPCA, where they start playing that song about those dogs and those animals that have been so hurt? My American Express gets dinged for that every month now. That's how we get people to follow us, is to connect with them emotionally. So when we connect the head with the heart, we get a heart-centered leader. And then when we connect with right below, if you know martial arts, anybody know martial arts? I don't either, but I read about it, okay? What I learned about martial arts is right below the navel is your power point, is your power stand. It is where your power is in your body. And it's called the hara, H-A-R-A. Not horror, horror, okay? I had one guy say, well, what does horror have to do with this? But anyway, so it's right below the navel. And so what helps you in martial arts is if you come at me this way, you can't knock me over. If you come at me this way, you cannot knock me over. If you come here, no matter what you do, you cannot knock me over unless you are wearing these shoes. Okay, so you want to be steady, to Dana's part. You want to be grounded in who you are. And so a couple of other things I'd like to touch on is that when you are in a situation and you're bumping into things, we tend to get scared of failure. And we don't realize that failure serves us and it teaches us. That's why they always ask you after a project, what were your lessons learned? Would I be correct? What were your lessons learned? So if you can move failure out and reposition it with your mindset, look at it differently. So the mindset is not did I fail, but how could I have done it differently? I don't know about any of you, and I know some of you have really little children, like toddlers or maybe even babies that are learning to walk. Anybody have that? So after your baby tried a few times to stand up, you're done. You failed at walking. Did anybody do that to their baby? So that's going to be the situation with all of us because it's part of humanity. It's a part of how we connect with each other. And we are going to fall down because that's how we learn. I want you to think about right now, just jot yourself down a little note. What was one thing that you felt really, really bad about, but it has been the most powerful thing in your career that you've learned? Okay, everybody really scribbled that down really fast. Okay. Another one is that I made up. Those of you that don't know me, I do have my MSU. I make stuff up. And I make stuff up because I observe. I'm an observer of patterns. And I see things that happen over and over and over again with my clients. So I came up with AFGO. So when you run into a situation, you can look at your friend and say, AFGO. And what does that mean? It's another flippin' growth opportunity. So again, if you can begin to shift your mindset as you're growing in your career and you're learning things, look at it differently. Because what I have seen is at the core of everything that we do, when we do not succeed, it's always going to come back to limiting beliefs and how we limit ourselves. And one of the jokes that and I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit, but a man will look at a job spec and he says, oh my God, I got 30%. And he will assume he will get that job. A woman will look at it and she will say, oh my God, I don't have 100%. And she will not even apply. So it's those mindsets. It's how do we recondition? How do we change how it is that we show up? And the other thing I would say is blind spots. Find somebody who is a trusted advisor. Find somebody who will tell you the truth, because that's how you're going to get to know yourself. And the truth is that when somebody does share something with you, that they're willing to help you in a constructive way grow, you probably knew it. You know it. And it's called self-awareness. And the more you can become self-aware, then the more you will become other-aware. And so one of the things I do when I'm really ready to judge somebody and say, you know, that boss, that colleague, that friend, I stop myself and I ask, when did I do that? Because I can guarantee you that almost everything you're judging somebody else for, you've done yourself. I had a situation not too long, I travel a lot, and I was at the airport, and I'm pulling in, and there is this big car. Okay, I mean, one of those really big ones that take up like 6 parking places. And it's backing up, and it's pulling in, and it's backing up, and it's pulling in, and it's backing up, and I'm sitting there, and I got a plane to catch, and I'm watching this go back and forth, back and forth. Finally, and it took everything I had not to honk. And finally, they parked. I'm doing the sprint down the concourse. I'm now coming back into Houston. I'm backing out, I'm pulling in. I'm backing out, I'm pulling in. I'm backing out, I'm pulling in. That was the type of parking space it was. So sometimes, not only do we not give ourselves a break, but we also don't give other people a break. And it's taking that breath, and it's saying, wait a minute. And then I want to say a couple of things on career very quickly, because that's in my bones. One of the things that I see a lot is people, back to the limiting beliefs. They'll say, you know, Cecilia, I don't ever see myself getting there. I just don't see how that's possible. And this is what I want you to think about. I want you to think about that if you said to me that you wanted to go to New York, and I said, great, and you get in your car and it's 8 o'clock at night and it's dark. So you get in your car and you turn on the headlights, and then you look at me and you say, I can't go to New York. I say, why? Because I can't see it. Your headlights will give you 200 feet in front of you, and then another 200 feet, and then another 200 feet. So if you really work on your relationships and how you connect with people, you need that village to help you get to where you need to get to. And they're going to keep encouraging me, well, me too, I could use it, encouraging as you go that 200 feet and that 200 feet and that 200 feet. And you will get where you want to go. And then the last thing I want to say is that I've noticed that most everybody knows the vision for the company, but they don't know their own personal vision and how it aligns with the company. That is how you make a career plan. is that you see what your vision is. I am working with a client right now. She's a very high-level person, and she is having difficulty aligning her vision. So what we're doing is we're working more on who she is and what does she want. And that's going to bring you back to who am I? You got to ask those hard questions. So you want a career plan. Now that doesn't mean that that's exactly what's going to happen, because these amazing things happen. I know every person up here can tell us stories where they were going down that street and then all of a sudden a rabbit crossed their path, and before they knew it, they were off on another aspect of their career, and they looked back and it was the best thing that ever happened. But you need a career plan and you need a strategy. And the strategy isn't like getting complacent. Because complacency, when you get into complacency, you get into the danger zone. And I can tell you, when you're in that danger zone because you got complacent and you're fire in your belly, you haven't gone to somebody and said, what else can I do? How can I take something off your plate? Where can I be supportive? There's an area over there I find interesting, especially right now with working with, less is more, you know? This is an opportunity to pick up responsibilities that when the market is up, you're not going to get them because the people are there to do them. This is your opportunity to expand. And then the last thing I would say, and people always go, when I say this one, you need an exit plan. That exit plan doesn't mean you leave the company. That exit plan means that you see yourself in a new place at some point. And what is it that you need where you are right now? Look at what your gaps are. What are your gaps so that the position that you have right now can get you those filled? Oh, Sister Amora would not like that English structure at all. But so that you can acquire the skills that you need right now, where you are right now, that are going to take you to your next place. And then the last thing I would say is you are the one you've been waiting for. You really are. You got to own your career. Companies no longer are going to take us to where they did 15, 20 years ago, which was a long time ago in another galaxy. Okay? It's a new day in the neighborhood. And so when you own who you are, you know who you are, and you know where you want to go, you are the one you've been waiting for. You are the one that is the one that's going to make this happen. And the people who want to be a part of your village. I am so tickled to be a part of this. This is a wonderful group. The energy is palpable. Thank you for having me.